Learn, make, repeat. Just make vids. Make art now. The art of documentary. These channel names and slogans will live in my head rent-free forever because of the sheer number of hours I've spent watching YouTube videos. There are so many high-quality channels and short films and documentaries, camera gear reviews. There's something for everyone on this platform. And it's really easy to be inspired by the quality content that is found here. And I can find myself watching videos for hours. The dangerous part about watching videos for hours, though, is wondering if your ideas are good enough. Am I good enough to create a video for this platform? Am I good enough to capture an audience for weeks on end? Is that something that I can do? Do I have stories to tell? Are my ideas good enough? And the answer is yes. When it comes to the best channels on YouTube, the thing that they all have in common is that they have an uncanny ability to come up with ideas, but an even better attribute of theirs is their ability to follow through on creating that content and following through on that idea. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't let the things that you can't control keep you from being creative. Take your idea, see it through to completion, and enjoy the process. I know I'm going to. I know what you're thinking. This week's video was very different than last week's video, and there's a reason for it. For quite some time, I've had this desire to make a feature-length kayaking film, and I've never pulled the trigger on it. And the idea has evolved over time, and I finally put something down on paper. I finally have an outline. I finally have a storyline, and I want to capture spring high water season here in Canada. And I have a great storyline for it. And I noticed last week that I had fallen into the trap of making a weekly vlog and not telling a story, and then also not putting a lot of effort into production value, whether it's lighting or audio. I wasn't putting a lot of effort into that. And to tell the story that I want to tell, I need to have lighting and audio on lock. I need to be dialed in on those things. And so I was very disappointed with myself when I looked at the end of last week's video. I was wearing a white shirt against a white background. I looked like I was part of the background. I had left the microphone on top of the camera on the other side of the room, and just hadn't really put a lot of effort into that last minute and a half of the video. And what I realized is that if I was going to take that project seriously, which I've already taken the time off to actually shoot it this spring, I needed to put some time into production value. I needed to set up a room. I needed to work on lighting. I needed to work on capturing better audio. And I needed to be able to capture interviews that were just as compelling as the whitewater that these paddlers will be paddling this spring. For those who are not familiar with the spring high water season here in Canada, there are some incredible features, like massive river waves that these paddlers are doing incredible tricks on. And as a photographer and as a videographer, it's some of the most compelling imagery that you could ever capture. And so that is why it's so important for me to work on the audio, to work on the lighting, to work on having a storyline that ties all of the action sequences together in a really compelling way. And so I knew I needed to practice that portion of filmmaking. And so this week I took kayaking out of the equation, because it's really easy to let the kayaking speak for itself. It's beautiful, it's fun, and it's really easy to see people stoke when they're on the water, and so that there's not much that you have to do with that. And so I really relied on that in last week's video. This week, I needed to take kayaking out of the equation and just tell a story from beginning to end, and really focus on having a really high quality setup, whether it's lighting or audio, really focusing on having really high quality audio, focus on really high quality lighting. As you saw in the video, there's a time-lapse sequence where I'm setting up the lights here. I've got a big softbox up here to my left. I've got a microphone right up here out of view on a C-stand with a boom arm, and then I've got a big diffusion panel here to my right with more lighting behind it to help kind of create some dimension within the room and help me look like I'm not sitting right against the back wall, because this space is quite small. And so these are things that I'm not particularly versed in or practiced in, and so I needed to work on them, and so I decided to use this week's video as an opportunity to work on them. Hopefully you do like the video that I came up with, and if you did, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you have feedback for me on this video, please leave it in the comments down below. The comments from last week's video and the week before, super helpful. There's been a lot of incredible feedback, and I've really appreciated that feedback. And if it's your first time to the channel, or if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Anyway, we'll see you next week.